This is why I go back to why we called it AI employee in the first place, and we continue to stick with it. Because you need to really think of these entities as new employees. And they're capable of doing work of not just one human employee, they're capable of doing work of like teams of employees. So now you have a new workforce. Imagine where you have some human and a lot of these AI employees, and the human role has to change. Sometimes the human role is giving feedback to the AI employee, monitoring the employee. So all of that has to be thought through a little bit. Otherwise, you are not going to see the real value of agentic AI.
What's up, everybody? Welcome back to Deployed. I'm joined today by Surojit Chatterjee. He's co-founder and CEO of a company called Emma that has been building enterprise agents for the past couple years. And it's fascinating about the conversation. Surojit was formerly CPO at Coinbase. He was VP of product for Google Shopping. He's had a bunch of big roles in other companies, and he saw this opportunity in early 2023 to start building complex multi-agent systems for large enterprises that would actually solve business critical problems, make decisions, take action. And he saw that at a time when a lot of people didn't think that was going to be possible. So they've now got a couple years under their belt. What they're doing is very much on trend for what a lot of listeners to this show are trying to build and roll out. And that's what makes the conversation great. Surojit talks about kind of how they see the market, how they approach customers, how they've tactically solved some of these different types of problems in the Emma product and with their customers. He talks about kind of the future of evals and why he's framed what they do to their customers as building AI employees. And that helps people think about how to give feedback and train those systems. It's just a great conversation, and I think you'll all enjoy it. So with that, we'll jump in. Thanks for listening. All right, everybody, welcome back. I'm excited to talk with Surojit today. Surojit, co-founder of Emma. We're going to talk mostly about Emma today. You've also done a bunch of really cool stuff through your career. Head of product at Coinbase, Flipkart, leadership roles at Google through the years. I'd love for you to introduce yourself to our audience and just talk a little bit about who you are, what you're building at Emma, your customers, just kind of for people that don't know the company yet. Let's start there, and then we'll jump in.
Well, very excited to be here again. Thank you. I'm Surojit Chatterjee. I'm CEO and co-founder of Emma, Enterprise Mission Assistant. We built this company, and we started building this company a couple of years back, and with the goal of building universal AI employee. What that means is basically we started working on agentic AI before the word agentic was even probably in vogue or in use. This was early 23. And what we have built is this framework of agents that can be used to create or manifest any type of agentic workflows, which is what we call an AI employee. And today our AI employees are working across like different functions in different industries, sales and marketing, finance, HR workflows. And we look at and customer support, of course. And we look at kind of end-to-end workflows, let's say hire to retire process, and how can we agentically transform that process, procure to pay, issue to resolution, and so on. So that's the company. We are funded by Axel. We've raised close to $100 million so far, based in Silicon Valley. And before this, I was, as you said, I was chief product officer at Coinbase. And then before that, I ran product ads and then mobile ads at Google. Mobile, in fact, I spent almost 10 years of my first 10 years of my career at Google building mobile ads, which was like from the very beginning of mobile.
Fascinating time, yep.
7 to a very large tens of billions of dollars of business from starting from zero.
Oh, that's awesome. And I mean, that's part of why I was excited to talk to you today. I think you're in a class of founders. There's a bunch of folks that meet this criteria who have, done a bunch of very interesting things in their careers and have now, gotten into founder mode after being in leadership roles at big companies and are building agents. You were one of the first. We met, back in that early 2023 era. I think you and then Alex Gravely at Minion were the first founders that I met who were saying, we're betting on agents. We're building a company here. Agents are clearly cool now. Back in early 2023, most of the zeitgeist was like no enterprise was ever going to use an agent because they just had all these, opportunities for failure. What was it that helped you see the opportunity and decide to bet on it back then?
Yeah. Look, your sort of experience kind of shapes you. One of the things that I have noticed, first, what is the premise of the company? Why even start a company like this, right? I have built a lot of good teams, like at Coinbase, at Google, where I was like there for 14 years. And inevitably, we'll hire really talented people. And then they will be like, okay, 50% of our time actually goes in just to maintain things, just to keep the lights on, get yellow, right? To look at other companies, these are tech companies. These are kind of some of the most sophisticated companies out there, right? Imagine a bank, imagine a healthcare company, a healthcare provider, insurance company. There, often 70-80% of the work is just like keeping the lights on, like mundane work, rote work. That even humans don't like to do that. Right? It's kind of soul crushing to do the same thing again and again, over and over again, right? So the goal was, how do we free up people to do more creative work? So I think the human potential is a lot more than sitting there and filling up spreadsheets all day long. Um, and that was the genesis of the company. Now, from the very beginning, when I was looking at this space and I was doing a lot of research myself, writing some code myself, um, my thesis was, we don't need to build another foundational model. See, at that time, there were other
Yeah.
companies who were building what is called action transformers, right? Because what is needed to build such a system, which basically take actions in the enterprise, understands all kinds of unstructured data, reasons about them, use tools, kind of human-like, but inside the enterprise. Um, the alternate approach was build action transformers. Some companies raised a huge amount of money with that thesis. My thesis was, and looking at the literature in late 22, early 23, the academic literature that was getting published, was that we need to build a framework or infrastructure, a software layer that leverages all these LLMs, maybe some small models, but not another large foundational model. Because the models are getting better and better in reasoning, in figuring out things. But you still need to create this arms and legs, and you still need to keep them in line to what the goal of the enterprise is, right? And that's a hard thing to do, right? You can't make mistakes. These are mission critical kind of systems, use cases. And that was the genesis. Like we felt our idea was, and we didn't even call it an agent at that time because that word was
Yeah.
there. Called
And
it,
I notice you still don't. You're
and
calling it an employee.
we have stuck to, because I think we think of it really like an employee, and I can go into the reasons for that. Um, but our AI employees are basically multi-agent systems. So that's another thing. We think a single agent system is not necessarily workable to solve complex enterprise use cases. And there are many, many reasons for that. There's a lot of research going on right now, actually, how multiple agents can give feedback to each other and can create better outcomes. That's what we have seen, right?
Can we talk through an example maybe? Like, would you be willing? I know you're doing a bunch of stuff in HR and finance, customer support. Like, tell us why, in your practice, like a single agent fails, what a multi-agent system is actually doing. Like, I think people, a lot of times, if they haven't been deep in this, they hear these words, they're reading them on the blogs or hearing them on podcasts like this one. Like, what are we actually talking about, and what has like happened that led you to this conclusion?
Yeah. So the key here is composability, and also explainability or observability. If you build a monolithic large system, it's very hard to get to the root cause of something. And just to illustrate an example, let's say like hire to retire process, and one of our customers, I can make it actually real. Hitachi, for example, a large conglomerate, multiple companies, right? They have 600 portfolio companies, and they came to us, a few months back, saying, "Hey, we are going to create a shared service for our HR and also finance and other things." That makes sense because all these companies have their own HR teams. Why not create a shared back office for cost and efficiency reasons, and so on? But the challenge here is these are separate companies. So if we just took like four of them, four of those companies, 50,000 odd employees, so very, very large deployment. But different companies means completely different systems of records, right? Somebody uses success factor, some company uses Workday, completely different systems of record, completely different clouds even. Like some are on GCP and some are on Azure, and so the traditional thought here will be, hey, move all of this data from all of these systems into one or two systems of records, do a whole process transformation, kind of a dream project for like consultants. Right?
Yeah, the
Uh,
systems integrators get paid on that. That's a big
System
opportunity.
integrators, management consultants, and they got a very high code from a management consulting company saying, hey, this will require like, uh, very large sums, like 20, $30 million, and multiple years to implement, right? Now, can you do this? The challenge we took on, like, can you do this in a few weeks without moving any data anywhere? And this is where the composable agents come in, right? So we have agents that can do, and then it's not only the systems, there are like use cases, variety of use cases, 27 or so different use cases from onboarding an employee, employees asking for I need a visa later. Somebody changes an address. That seems very simple, right? Oh, you change my address? I'll go and change in a database. No, it actually triggers a whole workflow in the back end for HR because
There's tax implications.
that's
There's all kinds of
exactly,
stuff.
if you're moving between states in the US, that itself is a workflow because you have to change W-2s, etc. You have to change maybe benefits implication, different states, different benefits, and so on. If you move countries, and these are global organizations, right? Large people are moving all the time also, sometimes moving temporarily, sometimes moving permanently. There are even bigger implications, right, in terms of workflow. So how do you do all that? We have agents that are specialized in doing certain things. It's almost like I'm composing, like our AI employee is like a whole team of experts. And I'm bringing in different experts. Like, oh, some expert knows how to use Workday really well, and some knows how to talk to ServiceNow really well. Some knows how to understand complex, unstructured documents really well, and some knows how to make a complete workflow execution plan really well, dynamically create, and you bring them all together. And this is the beauty of the platform we have built. Now, it's all composable units, agents that can come together. We started with the traditional drag and drop and no code, but we have moved on now to what we call an auto builder. So it's basically with a single prompt, it generates this workflow, and this is our own model, small model, actually, that kind of almost like a consultant's brain. It generates these workflows that saves like 80-90% of your time in building this as well. So the end result is actually extraordinary, if I may say so. And Hitachi's CHRO actually posted on her LinkedIn. Within 8 weeks, we could go all the way to implementation in such a complex kind of landscape. Like enterprise landscapes are very complex, and
Yeah.
that's the goal of our company is how do we make enterprise workflows real at massive scale. This is not a toy. This is not a agentic app that you can showcase and demo in a few hours. This is actual working stuff. Like their employees are depending on it. And we have done this again and again for different use cases in finance and support and sales and so on.
I mean, it's all very impressive, right? And I appreciate the complexity of working with a company like Hitachi. I think there was something in there that was like a bit dissonant to me, and I want to set you up to talk about it, right? Maybe dissonant to others too. But when you talk about that extreme kind of complexity of making something work in a mature enterprise environment, and at the same time, like a no code, kind of prompt builder that actually does a good job. There's a ton of no code agent builder tools out there. I'd love to hear you talk a little bit about like what have you done at Emma that's different? How does that no code interface actually end up working trustworthy, effective throughout an enterprise architecture like you just described?
Yeah, look, I have built products my entire life, and I strongly believe your product is shaped a lot by your initial customers, right? So if you build for like, okay, I'll build for citizen developers. They can build a tool to go there, do their shopping on Amazon and no code builder. That's different, right? It can fail. It's fine. It's like, whatever, low stakes. We started the company working with largest enterprises. And of course, we can do low stake stuff also and other things. But the genesis of the company, beginning of the company is take the most complex problem first, right?
Yep.
Right. So the way we have designed, right, it's almost contradictory. It's low code and actually conversational, not even low code, right? Building for most complex use cases. Can you do that? It's an impossible challenge. And we took on that challenge and made that real with real large customers. Um, and it is painful to work through the details of how you build something like this. So you have to connect to hundreds of applications. So we build a lot of the pre-connectors, a lot of MCP servers, right? Now, a lot of things are moving to MCP. You have to understand the scale of these enterprises. So, the amount of data they have, by the way, the entire data in the internet, we think is very large. It's probably 1% of humanity's data. Because some of these companies, the data they have internally is very, very large. And imagine how many these companies out there and institutions, if you look at government and so forth. You build fundamentally differently from the get-go. Build for scale, build for robustness, build for observability. Look, another thing that we had to really think through, two things I'll say. How are these agents making independent decisions? Because we are, bringing together multiple agents and making them work in unison, in a coherent manner. It's a difficult problem because these agents have their independent kind of mind, so to say. They talk to like our fusion model, our version of LLMs and so forth.
Sure.
The other big problem is a human in the loop. So no enterprise actually, and solving that problem at scale, no enterprise will tell you, at least not today, hey, go automate everything, and I don't want anybody to look at it at all. They like to have some places where they want to approve. So usually what we'll do with the client is understand where they want control still, whether they don't trust the AI yet or whether that is part of their process, whatever the reasons are. And how do you embed those control, again, without any code or anything, right? Just giving instructions to this AI employees in natural language. And we have been able to solve that. And it's a different type of product building. Look, it's in a way very satisfying because I've built product all my life. But I think the product we are building requires a very unique skill set and a kind of a frontier of innovation in human and computer or human AI interaction. So a lot of that has gone in, and I don't think we have solved all problems. That there are more problems and more research, but I think we have been able to do with focusing on this core enterprise automation problem at scale. We have been able to achieve quite a bit.
That's awesome. And you hit a bunch of stuff in there. I'd love to ask a couple of questions to come back. I'm sure people are curious about, but even just, tactically how some of this stuff comes to life. I'm trying to put my head around it, right? If I'm in your shoes, you're working with a big conglomerate like Hitachi, you're mentioned, I think at one point, 27 different workflows or, experts in the system. Is the way that you approach, you know, building those systems out kind of a roadmap, one task at a time for the types of, workflows that need to be completed? Like, I'm just curious, like, if you step in with a new customer, how do you go from, we've got a bunch of pre-built things and, off the shelf tools and primitives and connectors, models, MCP servers, all things, to, this very custom implementation, it seems like, right? But you're able to get there in 8 weeks. So I'm just curious, like, tactically, how did you approach that?
Yeah, so great question. We think in kind of it's a two-tier system. We have pre-built AI employees. So for example, HR or customer support and so on, where we have seen these use cases again and again. So pre-built AI employees where some workflows are already there, right? So you don't need,
Yep.
not starting from scratch. Now, is that pre-built AI employee just going to be plug and play? Some cases, if the customer is kind of, mostly canonical, sort of, maybe, but usually there some customization is needed. But those are small, like you are configuring something, you are connecting to a new system, they have new system of record, new database, whatever, right? And maybe giving some different instructions based on their internal policy and so on. Now, there may be a new use case we encounter within, like, say, hire to retire or procure to pay or issue to resolution. Any process you look at, there may sometimes often new use cases unique to that customer, or unique to that part, kind of niche industry, whatever it is. We are then able to bring together our pre-built agents. So there are pre-built agents and pre-built AI employees to create a new workflow or a new part of a new workflow, or a new AI employee. So, these agents come together in unique configurations to create workflows. So more workflows we build, by the way, our system is also learning to create workflows faster, automatically. So that's the other thing, that we kind of have a little bit of a network effect as well. But that's so the whole idea, and you used a kind of a very important word. It looks like custom, right? I think the whole idea is everything that exists as a service. See, what would these companies do otherwise, right? They will basically engage kind of in the traditionally services companies to build some really custom software, or humans, right? Um, Put in to run these processes for them. They may outsource the process to someone, or ask someone to write custom software to.
Mm-hmm.
What we are doing is turning those services into software very quickly using our framework. So you can just tell our AI employees, do this, and they will do that, right? And you can morph them very quickly to meld it, to adapt them to your business. And this is, I think, it's kind of a full circle. If you think about back in the 80s or 70s, large companies, if they need an HR app, they will go to, say, in those days, maybe IBM,
Just
right?
build it.
And
Yep.
build custom, right? Because there is nothing off the shelf available. But only the most, like, largest companies who have very large checkbook could afford that, right? And now it's kind of democratized. You can get something that looks custom but not custom at all, at a much more, quickly and cheaply.
Yeah. No, that all resonates. And I think, I mean, I'm curious how you actually do it. Are you all doing the forward deployed engineer playbook? Do you have different, teams that are focused for going on the front lines with customers to do that last mile customization? Or just talk to me a little bit about, how does your team look and how do you approach supporting those kinds of situations?
See, we often approach the customer and do like an agentic clinic, because we want to understand what they're trying to do. Because sometimes customers have, because they are getting a lot of pressure, like CXOs, chief AI officers, CTOs from the board, put some AI in.
Slap some AI on that.
Put some AI somewhere, right? And sometimes it is like that. So they are like finding one-off cases, use cases. Oh, I'll put one agent to do this. And turns out, if you do that, you'll actually aggravate the problem you already have. What problem do they have today? It's a mess. Enterprises are a mess. There are like typical large enterprise will have 1,000 plus applications. I'm not kidding. Maybe 2,000
I'm sure.
large enterprise.
We're a very small company, and I look at our list of SaaS products we use. It's close to 100. So
Absolutely. And these are all silos because each application has their own data silo, right? They don't talk to each other, right? So it's a mess with complexity, and then you need a lot of humans in between who are moving data and doing tasks between bridging those gaps. Basically, that's why you need so many people. You have created very complex ecosystem. You need a lot of people to manage it, control that. Now, if you bring in hundreds of agents that are built by random, like different, companies, you have another problem, which is how do you now manage those agents? So and so on. I think the agentic clinic we do is basically aimed at giving the customer advice on what is the right way to think about agents, which problem to even solve, which problem to is lower ROI, and so on. And once we do that, then we kind of basically, and it's not a big commitment for them. It's like few hours or something, or sometimes half a day with different teams, etc. And then we have our customer value engineers. We call them CV, customer value engineering team. Kind of work with them to reimagine their processes. See, it's not just putting some agents in some places where humans are doing work. You are actually agentically transforming the entire business process. I'll give you an example. A large company, I won't take name, came to us and say, hey, can you fix our T&E, travel and expenses process, because it's very old and very, whatever, right? It takes a lot of people. What's their process? And they basically came saying they have 9 different mailboxes. And it's a very large company, right? Global, hundreds, 150,000 or so people, right?
yeah,
Over time, they acquired companies, whatever happened, right? So they have 9 different inboxes, and they have humans watching those inboxes, and employees send like their travel and expenses or questions and approvals to all of them, and then humans go and figure out and resolve.
interesting. Yep.
They are like, okay, all we need from you is 9 agents who will just, watch those inboxes and do what the
Yeah.
humans are doing.
Let's read each of the emails. Yep.
I'm like, but why do you have 9 inboxes? Oh, we don't know. It was just there. So, just can you create 9 agents? I think the conversation is, I'm like, sure, we can create 9 agents, but think about it. This is your opportunity to transform the whole process. You need an inbox. Why does someone need to send an email? Maybe you just need one interface, right? A conversational interface. It can be anything, right? And one app where the entire employee group comes in, and they don't need to remember which of the 9 I need to go to on a given day, because apparently each or one of them have slightly different purpose. So there is a website they have to read and send it to the right place. And this is typical, by the way. This sounds dumb, but this is what happens in most enterprises, and there is a reason for it. It's not like they're not smart. So over time, things just accumulate, right? Nobody has the time to clean them up and so on. So a lot of what we do is advise them on what is the right. It's not just put in 9 agents. Of course, I can charge them more by putting in 9 agents or something, but saying what is best for you, because this is an opportunity for you to transform your whole business now.
I mean, you're getting deep into the consulting space there, and that's an interesting part of this. I think there's all this conversation about the convergence of consulting and software. Sounds like you have this customer value engineering team that's doing some of that frontlines work. Like, what are the background of those people? What are their skill sets?
Yeah. So, interestingly, some of them will have consulting background, right? Because they know how to handle that conversation. And just going back to your question a little bit, look, we could, sometimes customer will be like, no, just need a standalone thing. And I'm like, we're fine, we can sell it to you. But I always feel it's kind of my obligation, right, to help, to educate and help them think through what is happening right now in a, right. The agentic transformation to me is not just replacing one software by another software. You have some SaaS app, now you have another SaaS app that has conversational interface. That's not an agentic software. That's just a conversational interface over an application. You can do that all day long. To me, the agentic transformation, and I use the word because it's not just a software you are buying, you are actually changing how you work.
Mhm.
You are, and this is why I go back to why we called it AI employee in the first place, and we continue to stick with it. Because you need to really think of these entities as new employees, and they're capable of doing work of not just one human employee, they're capable of doing work of like teams of employees. So now you have a new workforce. Imagine where you have some human and a lot of these AI employees, and the human role has to change. Sometimes the human role is giving feedback to the AI employee, monitoring the employee. So all of that has to be thought through a little bit. Otherwise, you are not going to see the real value of agentic AI. And this, Ian, is what we are seeing. There's a lot of report of customers have implemented generative AI, not seeing ROI. I'm not surprised. Of course, if you just throw some AI in, this which is the actual words I heard from one CAIO saying, throw some AI in because I'm under a lot of pressure from the
A lot of people launched a chatbot in the
right.
last 2 years.
Just put
Yep.
some AI in, something that can search through my documents, and that's it. I'm like, okay, what is the ROI of that? Yes, maybe it's some incremental ROI, but it's not, you are just scratching the surface. There's a lot more you can do with a little bit of time investment. It's also not like, oh, you have to like the Hitachi example. It's not like we did a transformation taking 3 years and a huge amount of money. It's
Yep.
just thinking differently is needed. So your point, yes, we have people. We have increasingly hired some of the frontline people from with backgrounds like that, so they can advise the customer, not just trying to do a hard sell of a feature. Oh, go buy this for $20 per seat. I think that model is gone. SaaS is kind of dead. Will be dead. I've been saying that. I think the new software, the new age of software has to be tied to actual ROI.
That's fascinating. And I want to pull the thread on that a little bit. Like, you're talking about things as an AI employee. You're talking about software being dead, right? Or at least traditional SaaS. You know, you're talking about kind of the need for human experts in the business to have a human in the loop interaction or give feedback to the agents. We spend a lot of our time at FreePlay. We're working on evals and observability and production agent systems. And I think we've been running into this more recently too, and wondering kind of like where the line starts to shift from um, things like evals and observability being the domain of AI engineers and ML folks and product people. And it starts to kind of cross this line where it feels like we're getting into the space of evals and observability being the tactics for doing like HR performance reviews, right? Like you're kind of crossing this line.
Absolutely.
I'd love to hear you talk a little bit more about that, but I think like this idea of how do you teach or equip or enable your customers who are the business users, the HR folks, the finance folks, the customer support folks, to learn how to give feedback to an agent in a way that improves a system. Like, it's a kind of meta space. I'm sure people listening to this film would love to, or listening to this, conversation would love to hear about.
Absolutely. First, before you can advise the customer, you have to have your product be able to take feedback dynamically, and have reinforcement learning built into it, the agents, so it can act on those feedback, learns from those feedback. Agents need to have memory and so on. So there's a lot of pieces that need to be figured out. That's what we have been doing and we have done, where it will take the feedback, learn dynamically, and act differently, right? just like a human would do. I think the next part is absolutely educating the customer. And this is why we stuck with the AI employee name, because you have to treat these entities just like you treat with humans. Like you onboard, you hire someone new. On first day, you give them some onboarding documents, you teach them how to do things, you give them feedback, and so on. This is exactly how you will use this software also, right? It's not the traditional SaaS software, which actually has kind of no intelligence, right? It's just
Yeah, just CRUD actions on a database.
exactly right. It's just UI on a database, but this is a thinking kind of entity, reasoning entity. I was almost going to say breathing. It doesn't breathe, but
Hopefully not.
not even.
Even embodied AI, I hope it's not breathing.
So and that is, we often work hand in hand with the customer. We show them how we are giving feedback, and every one of our AI employees, allow taking feedback. Like any action it does, it says, "Hey, give me some feedback," or there is a modality where customer can give some feedback, whether a thumbs up, thumbs down, or more complex like actual written feedback. We take all different types of feedback, and then how do you act on the feedback? See, it's not simple. You have to think through a lot of different things, because will you act on a feedback of a junior employee who just joined today and says says something? Or who do you trust? So you have to go back to the customer and say, which feedback should we trust? And how do they have actually assigned some trusted users? Or they may say, oh, trust everybody. That's up to them. I'm just saying there is a process, and the system and the software needs to be designed correctly to take feedback and act on it. What you are doing, you are absolutely right. I was thinking you are building the HR system for the new workforce, right? The new workforce will have AI and humans side by side. And just like we have a lot of systems to give humans feedback, do their performance evaluation and ratings and so on, you have to do the same with your AI workforce as well. And it's actually turns out really, really important. Just like here, feedback systems are really important to run a good company. Same thing will happen.
Maybe this is something you're solving in your product. I've talked to several leaders about it. I'm just curious how you think about it. But this problem of quality monitoring in production, especially background agent systems, I think people are relatively terrified about, and maybe should be, right? And the closer you get to a no-code kind of builder, you've probably thought about this a lot. It's easy for a human employee to launch a new agent that's doing something, in your business. Maybe they don't always know what it's doing. Maybe they don't always see what it's doing. Like, how are you approaching that problem of helping your customers not just validate initial behavior, but keep tabs over agent behavior and identify things that they have to fix over time? Curious how you handle that.
Yeah. So two parts. First, the governance and control, and second, like the technical solution. The governance and control, which actually has technology kind of powering it as well, is super important. So in a large enterprise, like you are saying, you cannot allow anybody to willy-nilly launch an agent that can go and touch more sensitive data and so on. That can't happen. So we have built a governance layer which allows our administrators to, or the system, the subject matter expert, and the customer on the other side, figure out which role they assign to whom. So role-based control: who can build, who can deploy, who can manage, who can see what. This is really kind of like how you'll govern control and govern employees, right? Every employee doesn't have access to everything.
Sure.
Right. Same thing. Yep. So every employee does not have permission to do everything or anything, right? So there are roles and responsibilities and policies and so on, right? You are following. Same thing has to happen. So we have this very robust governance layer baked into our agentic framework and enterprise, right? The second thing here is, kind of more kind of going into the more details. Oh, how do you understand the agent's still perform well, right? Um, there's, of course, you will do human eval, but we also have agents evaluating agents. Like we have like LLM as a judge, kind of, that's a whole literature, academic literature on that. We have built a lot of that in kind of baked inside our AI employees, where there's like a maker checker, somebody is checking, like some AI employees checking another AI employee's work, and then
Right.
also uh, you know, notifying humans if they see discrepancy. Of course, humans are also doing some kind of sampling and checking as well. So all of these layers of checks and governance have to be built into the product and into your process.
Yeah, that's kind of what I would expect you to say, I guess. Like there's some need for automation, there's some need for human in the loop.
Absolutely.
And
At massive scale, you cannot do it manually. So we have kind of built in within our framework, automatically evaluating and judging um, these AI employees' work as well. But of course, humans can override and give feedback.
the human part is the part that I'm just kind of fascinated by, honestly, because it's teaching a class of folks, software builders would say, like the business users, right? The people that haven't been responsible for how software behaves, to be involved in the software behavior and shaping the process when they're not used to spending time that way, and they're not used to having to worry about whether the software is doing the right thing. um, how do you approach that part of the problem? Is this like part of your onboarding? Is this part of the product just kind of guides them to do the right thing?
Yeah, we want our business users to really think of these as AI employees, not software at all. In the sense, the way they are giving feedback is just natural language. Like they will give feedback, to another human. Think, do more of this, do less of that, whatever, right? So that they understand, right? So maybe you are giving the feedback not over voice. I mean, that can also be enabled, but you are typing it in somewhere. But that's the difference, and that's why we have seen the nomenclature of AI employee, even though it was very provocative when we started, and I got a lot of advice. Oh, don't call it that way because it's like there are other implications of it. But it actually has helped us really make it make people understand what we are talking about, right?
Yeah,
How to
I think it's a
interact
great
with this
analogy.
software. Yeah.
That's cool. I know that we're going to get close to time here, so I might ask you a couple like bigger picture questions. But for other builders listening, I think you sound like you're tackling a lot of complex problems. What does the frontier look like today? October 2025. I'm curious, like just what's not working well yet. What are the problems that your team is guiding customers? Nope, don't do that. Or maybe you're working on from an R&D perspective, but what's not working?
Great question. I think there are maybe two buckets here: what's not working and what's not probably useful to kind of focus on. Kind of look, we have the second bucket. We have crossed over that stage of like co-pilots, where I have a co-pilot on the side doing something to help me. Sure, they're useful and they have a place, but they are not the most ROI kind of positive things for you. Like spending so much money per month for a co-pilot, I don't know how much usage you are seeing and so on. When it comes to enterprise workflows, what's not working for us, we take on problems that we make we work that works. Um, look, all of these models. Let me put it this way: the most complex, like you know, uh, dynamic planning, right? We are kind of pushing the boundaries on how can we dynamically plan more, right? So I wouldn't say it's not working. I would say it can work even better. Like I would love to see like a chain of 20 tools dynamically called and planned, we can probably do 5-6 tools today, and we
Yeah.
to expand that, which means like, can I build even more complex workflows and make them work dynamically? So it's not like hard-coded workflow. It's not hard-coded kind of, oh, these are the tools that you will call. It's reasoning and figuring out and so on. I think the LLMs hallucinate a lot, so you have to do a lot of work. So for us, we have built our own model, a small model, Emma Fusion, that actually sits on top of all the LLMs and do a lot of retraining to figure out which enterprise task. How do we split that task, and how do we combine multiple LLMs to get the higher accuracy? And that has given us a lot of boost in accuracy and also lowered cost very dramatically. We have papers and so on, but there's more work that needs to be done there to get them to be more reliable.
Yeah, that's my sense, is like, even like the longer the context window gets, the more that there's multiple tools and multiple turns, like even the frontier models, I'm hearing that consistently from our customers too. Like those are the hard things to solve for. What about on the positive side? Like what's maybe a high alpha bit of advice 2 years into building an agent company, thing that you would want to just say to other builders, you really got right? Everyone else should go think about that today and do it again.
Look, my only advice is focus on the customer and just blank out the noise. That's it's not, I don't know if it is high alpha, but it's the only way. There's just so much noise in the market, so much like, social media, some, and so many things are not like, what's not working. Yeah, there are a lot of POCs not working, right?
Yeah.
What's not working, people are trying to build on top of, like, customers are trying to build these agentic systems on top of like basic frameworks with engineers. It's not working. These are hard things to build, not as simple as we may think, right? I think, in the end, creating real customer value wins, and focus on that, and focus on actually making it work in a sustainable way. Again, not like, okay, it worked one time or two times. Can it work at scale? Adapt to the needs of the business. The business are changing as well.
That's great. I mean, it's been true about building software forever, and I feel it every day. It hasn't changed with AI. There's no silver bullets with this stuff.
Maybe it has changed a little bit in some way, because people, if you look at the fundraising and everything else, sometimes you don't need a product or don't need anything real. So there's a lot happening in the market. Ultimately, I think it's just focusing on the core things will win.
That's awesome. Well, Surojit, I know we're at time. Thank you so much for talking with me. It's been a great conversation. We really appreciate it. And we'll look forward to talking next time.
Thank you so much.
All right. That's all we have for today's episode of Deployed, the AI Product Podcast. I'm Ian Cairns, CEO and co-founder of FreePlay. I hope you enjoyed listening. And if you did, we'd love to hear about it. Your reviews mean a lot. They help other listeners. So give us a like, share, subscribe, wherever you're listening to this. And if something stood out to you in the episode, or if you've got feedback or ideas for a future episode, or if you simply just want to learn more we're up to at FreePlay, shoot me a note. I'm Ian at freeplay.ai. You can also find me on Twitter @Cairns. Thanks so much for listening.